My wife and I were vacationing at one of our resorts. We rented a cozy guest house with a studio apartment where there were all the amenities and a separate entrance so that no one would interfere with us. We spent our days on the beach and our evenings in cafes and on the dance floor. We met 3 men by chance at one of the restaurants nearby. They came up to our table and invited Sveta to dance, to which she readily agreed, since I had already had a little too much and refused to dance. These men, about 50 years old, were fit athletes. One was a freestyle wrestling coach named Tengas. The second was a rowing coach. His name was Yuri Sergevich. And the third was a swimming coach, Andre. They had known each other for a long time and turned out to be cheerful and sociable. They danced with Sveta in turn, showering her with compliments and treating her to wine. By the time the cafe closed, I went to the toilet, and when I returned, I heard Tengas and Yuri talking animatedly about something. Listening, I caught that they were discussing how to cheer up the company and continue the evening. When I returned to the table, Tengas suggested that we continue the evening at our guest house, to which I drunkenly agreed, although inside I was unhappy with how Sveta flirted with strangers. Sveta also looked at me with a question, but I nodded affirmatively. We went home. I fell behind, a bit to buy more wine at the request of the men. When I returned, they were already waiting for me at the exit, and Sveta went to the toilet for a moment, accompanied by Yuri and Andre. I figured they were just taking her out so she wouldn't get lost. When I arrived at the place, the company was sitting in the apartment, and the conversations continued. Everyone was cheerful, although all the men's attention was focused on the light. I felt tense, but I continued to pretend that everything was under control. At some point, Sveta said that she was hot and that she wanted to change her clothes. She went into the room, closing the door behind her. "Dima, bring me a makeup bag," her voice rang out. I found a cosmetic bag, but Tengas offered to carry it himself, and taking it from me, disappeared behind the door of the room, closing it tightly. Behind him, the other men continued to chat, but the atmosphere became increasingly strange. At that moment, I realized that events were taking an unforeseen turn. My thoughts were confused, but I was still trying to keep everything under control. The men continued to act at ease, and I tried to ignore what was happening. We sat in silence again, and I listened intently. The sounds from the room became more and more rhythmic. There was a slight noise, and it increased my anxiety. "You have a very beautiful wife?" Andre said unexpectedly. I couldn't find the strength to answer. Everything that was happening was confusing me, and I didn't know how to react. Different emotions were fighting inside, but I tried to keep myself in control. Under the next sounds from the room, we drank some more. I didn't know what to do, but the feeling of discomfort was growing. About 10 minutes later, Tengas left the room. He looked relaxed, but I still felt uncomfortable. He silently poured himself a cognac and drank it in one gulp. "It's okay, we've talked," he said, looking at me calmly. "She's not mad at you anymore." I didn't know how to react to that. Andre and Yura continued the conversation as if everything that was happening was completely normal for them. At that moment, I felt completely lost and did not know what to do. Yura soon went into the room, and I stayed in the kitchen. All my thoughts were filled with doubts and fears, but I couldn't muster the strength to do anything. Tengas and Andre continued the conversation, not paying much attention to me. Time passed slowly, and emotions raged inside me. I sat down on a chair, listening to the sounds from the room. "Andreas, give me a break." His wife's weak voice. "It's all right, we'll be done soon," Andre replied, and I heard the bed creak softly. A few minutes later, Andre went into the kitchen, and my wife, Sveta, appeared next. She was clearly tired and a little confused. "You can take care of her now," Yura said. Sveta was in the shower, and I was carefully watering her with water. She avoided looking me in the eye. I took a sponge and started helping her wash the meat soap off her body. "Well, you, of course," I said softly. "And you?" she replied irritably. "You were just watching the others." Her voice sounded accusatory. I lowered my head, continuing to flush the water. "It's over. Let's forget it," I said, trying to calm her down. "It's easy for you to say." Sveta looked at me but did not say anything else. I finished washing her, and she came out of the shower wrapped in a towel. When we returned to the kitchen, Tengiz offered her a glass of wine. She drank it quickly. "Well, the second round?" Yura asked, dragging her towards the bedroom. Everyone went into the room. I stood on the sidelines, not knowing what to do next, feeling lost and confused. After a while, I went out into the corridor and listened to what was happening. Sveta looked a little calmer, and everything seemed to be over. I sat down next to my wife, who was quietly resting after a hard evening. We were in the kitchen, where everything seemed normal, despite the events of the past day. "I'm tired, Damaka. Let's finish for today," Sveta said with her eyes closed. I exhaled and went out into the kitchen, trying to put my thoughts in order. A few minutes later, Tengiz came out into the kitchen. "How is she?" he asked. "I'm tired. I think she needs to rest," I replied. Tengiz ignored my words and headed for the bedroom. I was left in the kitchen, lost in my thoughts, when I suddenly heard my wife's voice. "Please don't. Let's just sleep," Sveta said from the bedroom. The sounds from the room grew louder, but I tried not to pay attention. Gradually, Fatih got the better of me, and I fell asleep sitting in the kitchen. I woke up suddenly, feeling dry in my mouth and heavy in my head. The room was quiet, but thoughts of last night still haunted me. I went quietly to the bedroom and looked inside. Sveta was sleeping next to Tengiz, and relief from sleep was visible on her face. "Damaka, go get some coffee," she said, opening her eyes a little. I went to the bakery for coffee, and returned home. Yura was already in the kitchen, smoking a cigarette. "Did you bring coffee for your wife? Well done," he said, opening the door, looking into the room. I saw that the men continued to communicate with Sveta, but everything looked calm. I put the coffee on the table, sat down, and tried not to think about what had happened the day before. Sveta finally came out of the bathroom in my t-shirt, smiling, and calmly joining us. The men kept up a casual conversation, and Sveta looked relaxed and happy while enjoying her morning coffee. I was glad to see her in a good mood, and we continued to chat, leaving behind the tense moments of the night. "Oh, our beauty is not tired. Let's go to bed." Yura pulled her by the t-shirt. A minute later, all four disappeared through the bedroom door. After a few minutes, listening to the fuss, I still timidly looked into the room. My Svedachka was making love to Yura, and at the same time doing pleasant things to Tengiz. Andrei looked at it with pain in his eyes, but at the same time he strangely liked it. After quickly washing up, I looked into the bedroom again. The men were already finishing. Andrei was the first, and Yura was with him. Tengiz lasted the longest, but soon his liquid filled my wife's mouth. Everyone finished where they wanted. Sveta stretched out on the bed in languid bliss, and the men lazily stroked her body. It's good that I bought a lubricant. It wasn't an easy morning, but her complexes in making love to these men quickly disappeared. Although I don't think that adult men would be stopped by some of her complexes, it was obvious that the coaches had already had enough of my wife's body. Today, they even offered to lie on the beach and relax. On the beach, I confessed to my wife that I was glad that what had happened to us, that I not only did not mind, but on the contrary, I encouraged her choice. In the evening, we went to a cafe on the coast again. Sveta wore a light dress without a bra for the first time. She looked incredibly attractive, and I really liked it. "Will you dance with me now?" my wife asked me slyly. I hugged her, and we danced. During our dance, Svetashka fervently whispered all sorts of exciting things to me, said how she liked our new acquaintances, that she wanted them again. She was aroused again. I admired her, and my wife was transformed beyond recognition. I haven't seen such passion in her for a long time.